In this video we'll talk about highlighting duplicates using conditional formatting. So in Google Sheets, unlike Excel, there is no built-in functionality in conditional formatting to just highlight duplicates, at least not at the point of filming this video. So if I go on their format in conditional formatting after highlighting this, I go on their different rules that are available. You'll see there is no rule for highlighting duplicates. So how can we actually accomplish that? So the nice thing is that conditional formatting can be done using a formula. And the idea is that you're going to have a logical test. And if the logical test returns true, then it's going to color the cell. If it returns false, it's not going to color the cell. Now if you don't know what I mean by that, just hold with me and you'll understand in just a little bit. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm just going to try to highlight in this column everything that's a duplicate in a different color using conditional formatting. Now the first thing I'm going to do is create a formula. So I'm going to start with an equal sign. And I guess I'll put it right here in G column. Although if I do it in H, it's not going to make any difference. I'm just going to keep it tight here on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead with an equal sign and go ahead and type a function called COUNTIF. It's a conditional count function. And what I'm going to do, the first thing in the counted function is going to be the range. So I'm going to highlight the entire range of items where I'm checking for duplicates right here. Now because I'm very used to locking this, I'm going to press F4. Now, not. Well, in this case, actually, it's an important step. We want to do that. So we'll go ahead and lock that range right there. So we'll go ahead and hit comma. Now this second thing is the criteria. So in this range, what do we want to count? So we want to count if in that range there is another item that matches the item that is in current row. So the item that's in current row is going to be this A2 cell. So what we will be checking if there is any other items with this exact name in this range. And if there are, we're going to get a count of how many it is. If there is only one, we're going to get one, which is going to be just this one. If there are more, it's going to give us a higher count. So let's go ahead and hit enter. So I'm getting a 2. So there are 2. So 1, 2. We can see them. Now I can go ahead and copy this formula down. It went a little too far there. So I'll go with a double click. So it handles it for me. So you can see we get 2 of these. We got 1 of these. We have 2 again because it's the same thing as the one on top. We have 3 of this Nike Air Max and so on. 2 of these apparently and so on. Now basically what we're getting here is that everything that's 1, it's unique. We only have 1 of these. Everything that's higher than 1, which is 2 or 3 or 4, really any other number, it means it has a duplicate. So how can we convert this to become true or false? Well, it's going to be easy. As I said, everything that's higher than 1, right? It's a duplicate. So what I'm going to do is just go back to my formula and just make this a logical test. So far this formula returns me the number that I want to have, which will be 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. Now I want to check if it's higher than 1. So I'm going to ask if that is this higher. So I'm going to go this greater than symbol and then 1. So you can see it's already telling me true. Yes, it's higher than 1. I'm going to hit enter. So you'll see how it says true. Now everyone is going to become false and every other number should now say true because if it's higher than 1, it's going to say true. So let me copy this down. And you can see the result: see true, false, true, true because they have duplicates and false. So now I made a formula that returns true or false. So every true is a duplicate and every false is a unique item. But because we have a formula that returns true and false, we can use that. Formula for conditional formatting. So which formula do I want to use? I want to use the first one on top here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this formula, the first one on top. I'm going to hit escape. Now I'm going to go ahead and highlight the range starting from the top because I'm using the top formula. So I'm going to go from here, go all the way down. And you can see how the active highlight itself is still that first one up there. So it's important not to highlight the one on top, right? The product name because, well, that's not a part of our data. It's the label. So I'm going to go on the format, go on the conditional formatting. And here, well, that's the range that needs to get conditional formatting. Now the format cells, if I'm going to go the way, scroll the way down and go, custom formula. And the formula is going to be the formula we had in the first cell. So you can already see how it's highlighting in it, ring. If you don't like the green color, you can obviously change it to a different color. You can even go on the custom core format here and apply your own formatting and find what it has read. Whatever that color is, I don't really care about how it's colored. It's really the functionality we care about. So I'm going to go ahead and click Done. That should do it. Now we have conditional formatting. So everything that's a duplicate is highlighted in red. Now it's important to note that that's not really tied to our formulas here. We're making this formulas to make it easy for us to understand how to use that to make it work for our conditional formatting. Now there it is. It's all here. Now, this is completely dynamic as our old conditional formatting. So if I go ahead and change this to the same name, you'll see, it goes in red because it's a duplicate now. I'm going to undo that. So we got back to this. Now this is nice. This is the default functionality for highlighting duplicates in Excel, which just highlights duplicates in a single column, which you have duplicate values. Now what if we wanted to check if there is a duplicate in this entire row? So we want to check if the entire row is a duplicate. Because right now if we look at this row, and we look at this row, while a lot of columns are the same value, the size is different. So these are not duplicates if we're considering a duplicate to be the entire row being the same. Right? So how can we do this with conditional formatting? So first of all, I'm going to undo a few steps to undo my conditional formatting, start from the beginning. So now this is going to be a little more complicated to do. So the first thing we need to do, we need to have a grid of the same size. And to be frank with you, the size even doesn't matter. If you can make it work for 2 columns or 3 columns, that's good to go. It's going to work for all columns. But right now I'm going to make it that I'm going to try to kind of keep it simple. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. So the grid on the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? I'm going to go ahead and let's add some borders here. So it looks like a grid, although we don't need it, but we'll just keep it there. So what we want is a formula that's going to get us trues and falsies as we drag through all of the cells in the right places. So when we have a duplicate row, the entire row should say true. And when we have a non-duplicate row, the entire row should say false. So how do we get this? Where? We get this using array formulas. So I'm going to go ahead and use some product function in this case. In our some product function, we need an array. And the array is going to check whether it's in the array or not, right? Kind of. That's the same thing we did with our count. So we'll be doing COUNTIF basically using some product. Now I'm going to go ahead and first of all create the range. So we're trying to check not a single column, but as combined, all columns together in our data. So the way I'm going to accomplish that, I'm going to go ahead and create an array here. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the first column. Well, not that way, but the accurate way. So that's our first column from 8, 2 through a 17. We can get so. And for that, I could probably wait and do the lockings later, but I'm going to do this ampersand to combine because what I'm going to do, I'm going to combine these columns together to create one value out of those. And that way, I'm going to check for the entire row. So I'm going to go ahead and hit F4 again to lock that. Ampersand, we're going for the next column. Pretty sure you get it at this point. So we have to really pick all the columns where we have to check for duplicates since we're checking all of them. I really need all of them. Now I need all of these locked. So I'm going to highlight all of this and press F4. It's going to lock all of those. So now that's that. Now in this array that we have, we are trying to check if it's the same as the first item we had similar to how we did the COUNTIF condition. So first of all, to keep this together, I'm going to just wrap this around parentheses, this around the entire array. And I'm going to ask, is it equal to, and we're going to create now another array. And I'm going to put parentheses to again separate this to make this hopefully more easy to understand. So I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and this will create one bro ABCDF, ABCDF. Right. So that's going to create a logical test with true and false. Now the thing with some product formula is that some product formula cannot really handle true or false. But it can handle is numbers. So first of all, I'm going to close that parentheses for some product. Now the way we're going this right here, this logical test that is asking if this entire row combined is the same as this array of rows we have. So it's going to check against each one of this rows to see this true and false is going to basically return true and false. Now I think is that we don't need true or false as we need points and zeros. And the way we're going to do it, I'm going to wrap that entire expression of true or false as in parentheses and put double negative in front of it like that. So some product double negative and then we have our expression. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. You see it already returns 1. You can see right there. Right. And that's accurate because as we said, this shouldn't be considered a duplicate because this is different sizes there. 9 and 11 and a half for the other one. So let's set this down and see how it works. So for this one, it says we have 3. So we have this one. We have this one. That is correct. That's exactly the same. And we have this one. So that's a duplicate. That makes sense. Now this one also says we have another one, which is just 2. And if we look, it is actually the same item. So it's a duplicate. So that's good. So now we're getting ones like we needed for everything that's, not a duplicate. This is a unique item. And we're getting a higher number if it's duplicate. And again, similar to how we did with our counter function, now we need to convert this numbers, which is 1s and 3 is 1 and how we're converting through the forces to 1s and 0s before for some product. But now we're actually getting the opposite chosen forces. So I'm going to again ask this is greater than 1. And no, that's going to say false. If I drag down, it's going to say false, 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 true. If it's a duplicate true, it's a duplicate true. It's a duplicate. Now this works for this one column. But the trick is that we need this to work even if I drag this formula to the right. So the entire row, including the first one needs to be safe, false. And when it's true, it also needs to say true. But in this case, you can see how this one says true. But all the other ones still say false. We need them to say true for this to work. So what happens here is because we didn't lock the columns for this criteria we've made here. As we're pulling the formula to the right, it moves from column A, it was going from column A all the way to F, right? Now it's moving from A to B and from F to G. So we're not really combining the right items. And our fix for this is going to be to go back to our original formula. And we will need to lock all the columns in our criteria range now. So $sign here for B column, $sign for C column. So I'm locking all the columns, which is the text like ABCDF, right? But I'm not locking the rows because I needed to move to the next row to check against the next item and so on. So I'm going to hit enter. That's our false. I'm going to drag this down. That's my formula. And then I'm going to drag this to the right to make sure that this works. And now you can see how whenever it's not a duplicate, it's false for the entire row. Whenever it is a duplicate, it's true for the entire row. So if I can get this to this, that means I got a formula that will work for conditional formatting. So I'm going to go ahead at this point and again find the first one, go inside of this formula, go ahead and highlight the entire formula and Ctrl-C or Command-C to copy it. Hit Escape to get out of it. I don't want to change the formula at this point. I'm going to highlight the entire range of items. I'm going to go under Format, Conditional Formatting. And again, I'm going to change Format Cells if to Custom Formula is paste my formula in the box. You can already see how we're getting nice highlighting in the background. Use it to red color. Again, feel free to do custom and experiment and make something nice out of it. Hit done. And now the next out of this box, we can see that everything that's duplicate for the entire row is being highlighted in our conditional formatting color. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that whole thing from here. Now obviously if you wanted this to be more dynamic because you're possibly planning to add more data here and check conditional formatting, you want your range to be more than going all the way to a 17. You may want to go until a point where you think that's going to be the end of your data or it's going to be the maximum of rows in your data. If you're not going to have a maximum, you can bring moves to final rows like the 17ths that I have. You can remove them and just keep the A's to those. If we do that, that will work too. I did show this in a few videos already. So watch those if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about here. That's pretty much it. So this point, we can just go ahead and delete this because we were just doing this just to make it easy for us to understand how this actually works. And our condition in formatting is in place now and it works. And now if I go here and change this to 9, that should make the entire row identical to this other one. It will highlight it in red and our conditional formatting works as you can see. And that's it for our conditional formatting for duplicates video.